Okay, I think we're going to get started. Good afternoon. My name is Claudia Green, and I am the Executive Director of English for New Bostonians. And I want to thank you all for joining us for this forum and release of our report, Immigrants Unmute, Voices from Boston's Adult ESOL Pandemic Response. So for those of you who know us well, you know that EMB typically gathers and analyzes a considerable amount of data, maybe not as much as the state, but we do a lot throughout the year to understand how students are progressing and how programs are doing and where supports are needed. And so this year, in this pandemic time, we knew that our traditional tools and processes were really not up to the task and that we had a rare opportunity to learn. And so this report is an upshot of that thinking and the result of really a labor of love, I will say, by the EMB staff and EMB program staff and students. There was a lot of behind the scenes work on this. In fact, there still is. And I wanted to say I'm personally grateful to all of you. And I know that everyone's plate is overfull right now. So thank you. Our format for today is that Lee Haller, EMB's program manager, will share our findings and recommendations. And then we're really pleased and lucky to have three great guests for us to share their responses and their thoughts and experiences as related to this work. So, and first we have Braulio Telles Vilches, who's a graduate of the YMCA International Learning Center, Trinh Nguyen, who's the director of the Boston Mayor's Office of Workforce Development, and Yvonne Stevens Carter, who's the Adult Education State Director for the Mass Department of Ed. So we'll hear from each of them, and after Lee is finished, I'm going to have a couple questions for each of our panelists, and then we will open it up, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of, we really look forward to hearing from you, your questions, reflections on this work and where we go from here. So with that, I'll turn it right over to Lee Haller. Thank you. You're on mute, Lee? Just have to unmute.
Okay. Are the slides up yet? Louisa, you can go ahead and share the screen with the slides, please. There we go. Okay. Organizations everywhere paused this summer and early fall to take stock of successes and challenges from their work this year. This week, ENB is releasing a report of our findings from the pandemic response of the English language programs we work with. We developed new tools, asked many questions, and this report is a synthesis of what we learned. Please advance the slide. Okay. To start, let's remember some of what was involved in the pandemic response of ESOL programs. With little warning, programs across the city had to close their physical doors and open virtual ones. Teaching and testing materials were in locked school and office buildings. Teachers pivoted, calling and messaging students, assessing device and internet needs, teaching students, often one-on-one, to use various online platforms, and within a short time, resuming class. English for New Bostonians helped programs rethink their instruction in teacher cohort meetings and technical assistance sessions. With support from ENB and other partners, ESOL staff got hundreds of new devices into the hands of students and trained them to use them so that students could take classes with keyboards and large screens, not just their phones. Next slide, please. Simultaneous with this programmatic response, at ENB, we were also rethinking our evaluation. Virtual site visits provided an early look at instruction across our programs. ENB staff could zoom in to classes and meetings citywide and hear about struggles and successes. We designed a 22-question online student survey, which 316 students across 20 community programs and 4 workplace ESOL classes completed in May. 5 focus groups conducted with 30 students in June provided a deeper dive into students' first-person accounts of their experiences. In June, an all-grantee convening provided a chance to share out some of what we'd already learned and to hear from program directors in small groups. In July, data and narrative reports from our programs with additional questions this year related to COVID response completed the picture. Next slide, please. It was a triumph of perseverance and speaks to the value of ESOL classes that 78% of survey respondents continued to access their English classes. Teachers contacted all students, not just those who continued in the class, so we could learn about barriers to participation. Among those who did not continue, the biggest challenge for more than 1/3, 37%, of students was lack of time. This may seem counterintuitive since many people were stuck at home. However, some students had lost their jobs and desperately sought new work, while others worked in frightening conditions. They struggled to access food and tried to protect their families from the virus, often with limited information. One program suffered more than 40 students with COVID-19 and 3 deaths. Parents were thrust into managing children's online learning with little or no guidance, exacerbated by language and technology barriers. With the world turned upside down, it's a wonder 78% managed to continue. Programs reported contacting every student in whatever way they could on a regular basis to conduct wellness calls, persist in attempting to get students online, and posting class activities. For those who finally did not access virtual classes, programs planned to reach out to them in the fall when they would be better prepared to help them. Of those who stopped, at least 1/3, 33%, said it was due to lack of suitable device, reliable internet, or other technology issue, despite massive efforts by ENB and our grantees to equip all students. Tech issues may have also been a factor for the 21% who said the online class was not good for them. Let's look at those tech issues another way in terms of students who continued. Next slide, please. Pivoting to online learning was extremely complex for ESOL programs. It took weeks after the shutdown in mid-March to map out what students had in terms of devices, internet, and skills. By late April, with assistance from ENB, Tech Goes Home in the city of Boston, programs were able to get Chromebooks and tablets out to students. Notably, even after this enormous effort, 37% of students said they accessed their online class only on their phones. Next slide, please. In some programs, class time was reduced due to technical issues. A great deal was lost during this time. So in some cases, class time was reduced. Programs uniformly reported they expended a lot of time assessing student tech needs, getting devices out and helping students use them, setting them up for online instruction and ongoing troubleshooting. Some classes met synchronously for the full original schedule and hours per week, while some used a combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction, giving assignments for outside time. A few classes met just once a week for an hour or less of weekly synchronous time. An overwhelming majority of students said they missed physical interaction with teachers and classmates. They also missed the efficiency of in-person practice, asking questions, and sharing with teachers and classmates. Online learning can disrupt normal question and answer dynamics, and students aren't as able or comfortable speaking up for reasons such as bad audio and inadequate time. Many community and workplace ESOL students also said that they would have preferred more writing and grammar practice, and others said they missed games, pair and small group work, and field trips. Next slide, please. It was a tough year for student employment with a lot of lost ground. We heard this from 2 sources, the student surveys and the data reports submitted by programs. In the survey, as of May, 30% of students reported having lost their jobs. In the same survey, 89% said English classes will help me find a job or a better job. Among workplace ESOL students, 90% agreed that the class would help them improve communication with coworkers and with other job skills. Next slide, please. In July, program directors report on the whole year prior the year from the previous July through June. These reports from fiscal year 20 showed stark differences from the previous year. In FY20, job gains for students who were not employed and looking when they started the program were just 39%, compared to 56% who entered new jobs in FY19. Job stability also declined. 25% of students who started the year employed had lost and not regained jobs as of June 30th, compared to only 2% of students losing and not regaining jobs in FY19. Next slide, please. At the same time as a great deal was lost, there were gains. So there were some students reported that there were some things that were better about the classes at this time. So a large portion of students enjoyed the accessibility of online learning, and attendance was higher in some classes due to lack of commute and in many cases a more compatible schedule. Interestingly, some students said the remote format reduced their feelings of fear and intimidation when speaking English. New devices helped students continue learning English as well as teaching them new technology skills. They learned to troubleshoot through access challenges, days of low bandwidth and choppy audio, and to communicate solely through technology, reaching levels of digital literacy most had never needed previously. Their textbooks, online supplement, phone, voice, and video recorders, and platforms such as Google Classroom became central to their continued English learning, and the skills they built will serve them well going forward. Facility with technology will be critical to regaining lost work opportunities. In one advanced level class we visited, in fact it was Braulio's class, students delivered final oral presentations on Zoom, screen sharing their PowerPoints, responding to chat questions, and giving each other virtual applause. This experience honed important professional skills. Furthermore, one student even dialed in from his workplace in a 15-minute break to give his presentation. Next slide, please. Many students were grateful for the opportunity to socialize, and classes served as a distraction from the pandemic. 80% of students said their ESOL teacher told them about resources to help them and their families, such as where to get food and how to access unemployment. For parents, online learning taught them to help their children in the transition to online learning, or vice versa, their children helped them. Almost 3/4 of students agreed their online class helped them reduce their stress. In terms of English learning, standardized test scores were limited due to low testing rates. Programs that were able to post-test showed that 60% of students made significant learning gains. This is lower than usual. The sample size was smaller. Moreover, asynchronous assignments may not have fostered the same robust English gains as a communicative ESOL class, especially in speaking listening skills, which are the skills measured by the most frequently used test, the BEST+. However, when ENB asked students to gauge their own progress on the survey, 89% of students felt their English class over the course of the whole year helped them improve their English, and 77% said the same about their virtual classes since March 15th. Next slide, please. In focus groups and reports, students and ESOL programs made recommendations on the system, program, and class level. On the system level, resources must be allocated to ensure equitable access to English learning for all students. Through training, technical assistance, and funding, we need to help teachers and programs conduct effective virtual programming, support students' English and digital literacy skills, and ensure lessons are easily accessible by tablets, computers, and smartphones. We need to develop innovative virtual and hybrid instructional models to offer greater access and flexibility. We need greater intensity, additional hands, and increased preparation time. To that end, we recommend increasing class staffing by 25% during the pandemic. The city and state should look to national and international examples for providing low-cost, high-capacity wireless access. In terms of student economic success, we need to explore new possibilities for employment and business ownership, such as creation of worker-owned cooperatives. Finally, on the system level, increase use of volunteers. ENB's Allies for Immigrant ESOL Corps recruits, trains, and places volunteers across 10 ENB sites. Volunteers proved critical to support teachers and students. More are needed. Next slide, please. At the program level, we heard and promote these recommendations. Orient students to program protocols and expectations regarding participation. Take time before and outside of classes to assess technology needs, get devices and hotspots to students, and help people get online. To the extent possible, offer longer or more frequent class periods. Ensure that each class has at least one monitor or assistant, often a volunteer, to help students and support teachers running a virtual classroom. Build in additional paid time for teachers to prepare classes and share practices with each other, attend trainings, and build their own digital skills. Many parents have children learning remotely and needing support. Programs should be flexible when scheduling classes. A class that normally meets in the mornings may find an after-school time works better. In terms of student employment, a lot is needed. We hope programs can provide students with guidance on enrolling in skills training and with up-to-date information on labor market trends and job openings. Programs can create time and means, such as a virtual bulletin board, for students to share what they know and hear about companies looking for workers. Finally, about jobs, programs can conduct regular updates on student progress toward re-employment, including whether jobs are at similar levels of hours and compensation. Finally, programs can create or revive program councils comprising students, staff, and volunteers to provide feedback continuously, identify problems as they emerge, and find creative solutions. Next slide, please. Lastly, students shared their ideas of how their classes could be even better going forward. A group chat, for example with WhatsApp, is a great help for class-wide communication. Group activities such as games increase engagement, and teachers can utilize online tools to create them. Students need additional help with speaking and listening skills, with asking questions, and they need opportunities for more practice. They ask that teachers explore options for improved audio and breakout rooms, provide opportunities for them to exchange information with classmates and to get individual help. Students ask that teachers release class materials ahead of time and review more often. Finally, every year in every class, students say they need more, but this year that need seems especially great, with online access issues, variances in class schedules, and students' overwhelming need to improve their life situations and economic prospects. Final slide. Thank you. I'll close here and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Lee. So I want to now bring in our panelists to give us sort of their own experience and to comment on the report. So I want to start with Braulio Tejas Vilches. I hope I'm saying your name right. If you could, I see you are unmuted. And if you could just start by telling us, Braulio, a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and why did you decide to join the YMCA International Learning Center ESOL program?
Thanks, Claudia. Hi, everybody. It's a high honor to be part of this panel. And well, Braulio Tejas from Cuba, Havana. So I've been here living in the US for 5 years and 6 months. And I was referred to the YMCA from the Irish Immigrant International Center, because what's my request? Because I realized that I needed more English in order to achieve my dreams and get access to the college, to the university. And what I found over there was amazing, actually, massive. The best school, the best teachers, actually, well, there's something that I can't describe.
All right, thank you. That's a good lead-in. Actually, before I ask you another question, I want to let people know that Lee will answer questions about the report when we're done with all the panelists, in addition to other questions you may have. So going back to you, Braulio, what would you say, were the elements in your class that made it easier for you to transition to remote learning when the pandemic hit?
Yes, well, first of all, the amazing job, the professors, so I'm talking about Laura, I'm talking about Monica, they were so supportive, so professional, that they assured that anybody was left behind. So they were so involved in the process, they pay attention to the differences, because of course we are a variety of students with a variety of backgrounds, and they assure that everybody was, as a group, transitioning through all this process, and everything worked absolutely fine. The other reason is that a lot of people were involved, emotionally involved in the program. Everybody was quite motivated, and so quite interested in follow the process, follow the program, and of course, learn a little more. And of course, the organization of the process. Everything was so organized, so synchronized. Very good job.
That's great to hear. Thank you. And Braulio, could you tell us, as students are, I know I believe you're not continuing to attend. You've graduated from the program, and your English is great, I might add. But I want to hear from you, what are your recommendations for students who are continuing to learn online? As we know, most, it seems like nearly every program is staying remote this fall. So what are your recommendations to students as how to thrive and do well in these classes?
Well, Monica, probably is the most important question. So from my perspective, embrace the program is the most important thing, because for us, the immigrant, the door to success, as a forced success here in the US, is the education, absolutely. And this is my first recommendation, embrace the program. So to love the program and see in the program your future. This is the most important thing. The other question is that even though you repeat the program has always something new to teach you. In my case, for example, so being all these years, being part of the program allowed me to pass my NTEL exams and get the Massachusetts teacher licensure for teaching Spanish. And so my success has to be directly attributed to the YMCA, and the rest of the institution have been working with us too as well.
All right, you make it look easy. And I know there, as we heard from Lee, students, including you, I believe you had participated in one of the focus groups, I think had a lot of recommendations for how really to manage the online learning process. So thank you so much. And now I want to turn to Trin Nguyen, the Director of the Mayor's Office for Workforce Development. And I would just want to ask you, what stands out to you and what surprised you, if anything, in our findings and recommendations?
Thank you, Claudia. First, I want to thank EMB, Claudia, Lee, and many staff and advisors for their work to make this report a reality. And during these times, it's really essential to keep ESOL, student progress, the need to be front and center. So thank you. I also want to thank my colleague who's on the panel, Wybon, and her staff, who've been instrumental to working with us to getting resources, technical assistance to the ground efficiently and quickly in times of need. Wybon, you and your staff have bent over backwards to really respond to grantees' needs and what's on the ground. So really appreciate that. Thank you, Braulio, and the audience for joining us. You all are on the front lines of this important work. So we have deep appreciation for all of you who are listening and participating. As folks know, my name is Trin Nguyen. As Claudia mentioned, I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development, and we focus on progressive policies and programs that ignite equitable economic mobility for all Boston residents, regardless of your race, gender, orientation, and the like. We are the largest workforce development funder in the region, distributing between 14 to 18 million annually from the federal, state, and local funding to community partners. And specifically for adult basic education and ESOL, we work closely with Wybon's office for an annual allocation of between 8 million to 9 million to support 28 Boston-based programs and 10 adult basic education, including 18 ESL programs here. Many of you are on the call, so thank you for working with us, especially during these trying times. I just want to say that our office, like EMB, have been working together to field the key issues on the ground and to work closely with our grantees to see what the immediate needs are and, to the best of our ability, respond to those needs immediately. So a lot of what we've read and heard through the report and findings are unfortunately not new to us, but really appreciate the findings and guidance on where our team should move forward. So while the issues are prominent and are there, the findings that you have are really good for us to learn so that we can take immediate next steps. And these are really good points. Several thoughts to respond to Braulio, students, and the report finding. Just a few quick things. Lee mentioned this in her slide, but it's very apparent in the report that, ESOL students are not only taking classes, they're doing it in addition to the economic and financial hardships of losing a job overnight, having their housing turned over, and whether or not learning about and knowing whether or not they can make rent and ends meet the next day is also crucial. Childcare, health reasons, safety for their families, all of this is going on while they're taking classes diligently and have succeeded at the same time. And Lee's finding on the slides and in the report clearly indicate that ESL students are resilient, extremely smart, and committed to being successful in learning English and contributing to the economy and taking care of their families and community at the same time. We've always known that, but this pandemic and economic disaster have prefaced and surfaced that resilience for immigrants and ESL students. We should learn from that and know that as is from the city and from OWD and the mayor, we need to know that we're investing in winning students. And that means increasing and getting the message out there that students and ESL programs need additional resources, especially around free, universal, high quality broadband for all residents, regardless of where you live. And so once we provide those resources, we know investing in ESL programs and students, we know that they will be successful. So we should put additional investment in that work. The second point is, it was highlighted in the report, but maybe not so much in the slides, is that we need to provide and pay attention to teachers and instructors. And one thing we learned from the ground was that instructors for ESL classes had to scramble themselves. They paid out of pocket for Wi-Fi for students, laptops for students. They had to scramble to make sure that they are still providing quality curriculum to students. So that is something we need to pay attention to in providing professional development to teachers and instructors. The other piece that we've learned from our experience from the report and from our work on the ground too is that teachers and instructors also became case managers. They had to provide unemployment insurance support, be translators, get students to food banks, access to free COVID testing, doing a variety of things in addition to teaching. So we have the utmost respect for teachers and instructors who were all hands on deck, played more of a role than just instructors. So understanding that there is a need to support instructors and teachers is also very important. And my last and final comment is to the connection with ESL and workforce development and jobs and career pathways, as Lee mentioned in one of her slides. Even pre-COVID, our office has been working diligently to connect the ESL industry to workforce development. We know that, look, students are not attending classes just because they want to learn English or they have free time. They want to invest ESL classes because they want a better job so they can get a family sustaining wages with benefits so they can provide for their family. So we know that English proficiency plus post-secondary education correlates highly to economic mobility and better jobs for people. And so we were always committed to that pre-COVID. We know now that because the labor market are in dire straits, that it should be front and center now more than ever. So we will be getting a united front to make sure that we are on par with that. And we know we need to do things differently. It can't be like this ESL classes anymore. We need to learn from the games that Lee mentioned in one of her slides. We know that IT and technology provides flexibility and choices for students so that they can complete their classes. We know that we need flexibility for students so that they can provide childcare, go to work, and handle household affairs as well. So we need to understand those gains and integrate that in our programs moving forward. And like you all, our office wants to ensure that adult basic education, particularly ESL, is continually to be a priority as we recover, reopen, and we know that the talent of this workforce and the workers are the backbones to a healthy economy, and ESL is linked to that. So we want to make sure it's always a policy priority. I am open to answering any questions. I love to hear from my colleague Yvonne and others as well, and happy to answer additional questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trin. Thanks so much for your thoughtful comments. That's great. I want to take a moment to note that through last spring, we were able to work with the city of Boston and with Tech Goes Home to be able to distribute or to get out to programs so they in turn could distribute 100 Chromebooks from Tech Goes Home, a bunch of hotspots and tablets through the city of Boston, over 300 tablets. So that was an enormous, it was huge. It was a game changer for how classes were running and how students were able to access classes. We did a quick tally over the last few days. It was close to a $200,000 investment from both those sources. So, which in some ways you could say is sort of the same source. But anyway, I just wanted to note how important that was. And we are working with both Tech Goes Home and the city to ensure that new students coming in will have proper technology and internet access going forward. Okay, I want to turn now to Yvonne Stevens-Carter, the Adult Education State Director, who really needs no introduction here. And Yvonne, I wonder if you could share your thoughts about just how the state is, kind of generally, but in a short amount of time, I guess, how the state is helping students to learn English online and how this report might guide your thinking, this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, and Trent, thank you so much. Trent thanked everyone in the field for their partnership, and I want to just ditto that. I appreciate all of our partnerships that we have in working. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to say that the state, I really appreciate the report that you guys have done for EMB, because what it does is it gives us the voice of the students. And the state, we surveyed the field, the staff, the teachers, and the directors, some 80 programs. So we understood and heard the voices of what the teachers and the directors and advisors were going through. And this report is the voices of the student. And I go, and they're saying the same thing. It was really hard. It was really challenging. And they navigated it by really building on the communities that they had. And I think, thank you, if I say your name, I'm going to try it because I'm just going to try it. Braulio, for speaking to the relationship that you had with your program and the staff, which made it successful. And I think for us as a state, what we see, or what I've seen, is that our programs and services serve a very unique role in this, I'll call it the circle of life in people's lives. There's a place for us in a need that we meet that's super important, and it's been mentioned by so many people. So I'm gonna forget the question because I'm just going through, but I think what we want to do as a state is to provide the resources that our programs need to be able to continue to do the high quality services. I think one of the things that we tried to do early on is we tried to give people freedom to understand that business as usual is, put that aside, deal with the people first. Let's deal with the needs. That is the work. That's part of the work. You gotta, if people are scared or dealing with their kids being home, or they need food or housing situation, you can't learn when you're not feeling like your resources and things are safe. So I was very, very proud of our staff. As you have said, your staff, you noticed the same things. They were meeting the students' needs and just the best way they can. And I'd say in a pandemic and in any kind of hard situation, we saw the best of people come out. And, while it is typically the work of counselors and so forth to do these specific things, I just think that we saw the best in humanity of us in this field, and our real true desire to meet students' need and do what we can. And I feel like our field did what they could. And so for all the teachers on there, I'll just give you my own personal shout out for the packets that you delivered, for the food vouchers that you put out there, for the, the tears that you, and the way that you listen to the students, And I've always said we have to acknowledge that while all of this was happening, people died and people lost people. And not only our students, but some of our staff and teachers. So it wasn't without effect. And people are still navigating multiple realities. So I hope that as a state, we can share this report with the field so that it can continue to reinforce things that they can do on a programmatic level, things that they can do to improve their programs and services for students. I think it also gives some of the partnerships that programs can reach out to. We've known of Tech Goes Home and other partnerships and collaborations, and people who are teaching out there. And so we want to, I think this will be another tool that programs can use as a resource about what to do and how to do it. We are also providing professional development to our field. That was one of the things that we were able to do a great deal during when we shut down in March until June, and through our work with Sabes and all of our professional development centers, they were on it. And I think one of the things I'm really proud about is that we were able to respond very quickly. I want to say our first Google Classroom workshop was March the 25th or something like that. I was like, we shut down on, one day, and 10 days later, there was like a 2 or 3 part Google Classroom, how to get it going kind of thing. And I think that our programs took advantage of a lot of that professional development and are hitting the ground this fall, hopefully stronger. We do know that there's still need. I hear the need around the need for broadband and tools and services, and I think we can work together. I think Trin, you and I, and some other people need to probably get together and see what we can do with all of our partners and what we can do to move things. And so, yeah, and I think one of the things that we're working on, or I'm really interested in doing, is because we're a part of the K through 12 system, and we know that there are a lot of kids out there that are getting devices, that we want to be able to use the resources that we're putting into the homes of the children and see how that can be broadened and expanded or used in the adult world. And, we have to be creative during this time, and then access to all students is super important. And I think, and we definitely want to work on that, look at that, and continue to analyze and see how we close the gap for those who aren't receiving the services that they need.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to hear from all of you. I want to take some time to, I know that Trin has to jump off at 12:55, sorry. So I just want to make sure that we have some time for people to share questions, comments, and I think so Franklin Peralta, who's on the call from ENB, is responsible for kind of monitoring the chat. Do we have anything you want to shout out right now as a question or comment, Franklin?
Sure, thank you, Claudia. Well, several of you have been echoing how ESOL teachers and programs are dealing with the whole person and not just with the academic dimension of people. We really appreciate that, and that's what we've seen through the whole pandemic. Sylvia from World Ed shared with us some resources from the EdTech Center, which, as you know, is an authority on online learning. So we definitely encourage you to go ahead and review those resources. There is a question for Lee about the time for teachers to prep and how what is the best practice on that sense. So Lee, if you would like to address that question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Holly, for asking this question. It's about the recommendation about 25% increased staffing time. So that is just a number, and it's probably a bare minimum. Trin and Yvonne and others have spoken so eloquently about the heroic efforts of teachers as case managers. I echo their thanks. In addition to the ways that teachers were supporting students in all other aspects of their lives that was really time consuming, teachers were also pouring additional preparation hours into getting ready for their classes. It was, a new instructional format, required whole new learning on their part. And, experienced teachers who in the past, might have put in half an hour of prep time for each hour of class time, found they were putting in a full hour or 2 hours of prep time for each hour of class. So increased teacher time for everything is the recommendation, and 25% is just a suggestion of something that might be that can be attainable on the system level. That was also a reason why classes had met reduced hours in some cases, because teachers were spending so much of their time preparing and helping students with outside issues.
Okay. Any additional questions or reflections, suggestions? Feel free to, if it's easier to just unmute yourself, feel free to do that.
Hi, this is Trin. Just quickly, I know that Lee and others and Franklin mentioned the connection of ESL students and how 30% of the respondents lost their job. And that, we know that is an undercount, because we know a lot more, workers, particularly in the hospitality and restaurant workers who are immigrants and or are working towards ESL proficiency, lost a bulk of the jobs. And so Franklin's point about looking at ESL industry and students as a whole is a good one, because our office has been working with not only providing resources and prioritizing ESOL programs, but we also know that protecting workers while they are on the job, whether it's delivering food or in restaurants, it's really important. So we've been working with the AG's office to make sure that employers have safety precautions for lower wage workers who tend to be immigrants who are taking these classes. We're also working on legislative pieces for continuous paid sick leave to ensure that everybody feels if they're sick, they can stay home. And then last but not least, we are working to ensure that hospitality workers in their contracts have a right to call. So if the economy is bouncing back, that they need to call back workers who they had before. So while all of that is not ESOL strictly related, it is supporting a constituent that are benefiting from ESOL. So we know that the complications around supporting ESOL as an industry is not just about classes, right? It's about the whole context and family and community that we have to build stronger so that students can thrive. And so we hear that, and thank you for your question around that, Franklin.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say that you just brought up a point too that I noticed with this pandemic in regards to our students who are typically who are second language learners, and how the types of jobs that they had were the ones, those were the industries that were hit the hardest, a lot of them. And while we've been in this configuration of working from home, or lots of industries were able to work from home, there were a good number of our students that were not able to do so. the jobs were the kind where they had to show up. And one of our programs in Chelsea, and you know, those that's been a red community in the highest hit areas for a long time, and this is where a lot of our second language learners live and different things. But it's just one of those things I've thought we need to think thoughtfully about the jobs that we're preparing our students for, and really look at preparing them for jobs and careers where they could take advantage of and have access to, you know, things like that I have access to and you have access to. We can work from home and still and not lose, you know, certain things. So I think this is an access and equity issue that we need to be looking at across the state, and really helping build programs. But I think we have to start thinking differently as well.
Yeah. Something I wanted to mention, a couple of things I wanted to mention sort of on coming from ENB. You know, one thing I think, just to follow up on these comments, something that really came into stark relief is the lack of safety net for immigrants who do not have work authorization. And so this, you know, it's an issue that we have really been trying to address for several years to find, you know, sound economic pathways for students regardless of immigration status. But I think that just, you know, we know that this really just, again, brought the issue into stark relief. And so we've been working to, you know, around business ownership, particularly cooperative business ownership. And those are areas that we're going to be working with programs and with other partners are in the coming months, to really ensure that that we have something to offer. We have something to, you know, to work with students who don't have work authorization, and any students really, but particularly that with given the current circumstances. A couple other things that we have really kind of doubled down on is the need for volunteers. I think we certainly heard about that in the report. Through our Allies for Immigrants program, we are training we're recruiting and training more volunteers to get them out to ESL programs. And we also, Susan Claw and Leah Gregory developed, over the summer, developed a new curriculum supplement, the basics of online technology skills for adult ESOL students, to help right now in this time, to help teachers and programs to get students online, to sort of smooth that transition. And finally, we are, you know, as you are, as the state is doing through Sabes, and we are doing additionally as well with ENB, is just doing a lot more tech training. I think for teachers and tutors, we've had, you know, a huge interest in those, and so already, you know, starting up in the fall. So that's happening. Trin, let's see, is she still on? I think she might have had to get off. Thank you, Trin, although you're not here. So yeah, I see Susan's raised hand, and just want to make sure if there's anything else before we hit noon. So go ahead, Susan, quickly. Yeah, you have to unmute. Unmute, Susan. Okay.
I just wanted to second what you were just saying about volunteers. The volunteer who works with me in my class is here today on the call, and really, I cannot do these online Zoom classes without another pair of eyes helping me, and totally crucial, because my students are too polite to say when something is wrong, like, oh, you're not sharing your screen, the screen's totally black, or the sound is terrible, and I so need a volunteer, and Lindsay Duggan is the one who's been working with me through Allies for New Immigrants. But it has really become more necessary than ever. You know, when we do breakout rooms, you need an assistant to help you do small group discussions, and you can't circulate too easily. So I really just wanted to emphasize that that's been a huge help to all of us in the classroom. And, you know, if we can continue to recruit volunteers, I think it's very satisfying work, that is for sure. It's a very satisfying kind of volunteer work, that's for sure.
Thank you, Susan. Franklin, any last questions or comments through the chat, or are we good?
basically, thank you, Holly. She repeats that her prep time has increased a lot since having to move the instruction online.
We hear you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And I know there are some great links. We will get them out. And I wanted to say that we will be posting the full report this afternoon on our website. We still, we're always running. We still have a few more tweaks to go, but we will be posting it later. And I just want to say we are so grateful to work with all of you, to have you join us, kind of on short notice this afternoon. We have an intense fall ahead of us. As we know, things are changing all the time. The only thing that we can count on, I think, is, I know is the goodwill and expertise and compassion of the ESOL field. I think we've heard that loud and clear today. And the tremendous tenacity and resiliency and persistence of ESOL students. And that's why we're all here. So thank you so much. I want to give a quick reminder that our English for New Bostonians Raising Our Voices event is on October 22nd at noon. The registration link is on our website. We hope you all can join us. We have a lot in store. And once again, thank you and have a great weekend.